The humid air of Etheria always carried the scent of possibility, a mix of exhaust fumes, blooming jasmine, and the promise of a better tomorrow. For me, Alara Vance, 32 years old and brimming with dreams, that scent was particularly potent. For years, I had poured my heart and soul into Alara's Corner, my small online shop specializing in handcrafted home decor, sourced from local artisans and infused with the spirit of our vibrant culture. It started in my cramped apartment, every spare surface covered with sketches, fabric swatches, and half-finished pieces. Every late night, every penny saved, was a brick laid in the foundation of a much bigger vision, a physical storefront. I dreamt of a sunlit space on Etheria's bustling market street, a place where people could walk in, touch the textured fabrics, smell the hand-poured candles, and see the stories behind each unique item. It wasn't just a shop. It was going to be a community hub, a testament to the beauty of local craftsmanship, and a symbol of my independence. The economy here was a constant uphill climb, and every step felt like dragging a boulder, but I pushed through. I skimped on luxuries, worked double shifts, and meticulously tracked every sale. Slowly, painstakingly, the funds grew. Finally, after years of relentless effort, I had saved nearly $200,000, enough to secure a lease on a beautiful little shop and outfit it. My dream was within reach. The last piece of the puzzle was the storefront signage. I wanted something elegant, something that reflected the artisanal quality of my products. After some searching, I found Signage Solutions through a local online directory. Their Facebook page looked professional, showcasing impressive designs and glowing, albeit generic, testimonials. Their representative, a man named Mr. Lim, was smooth and reassuring during our initial calls. He presented a detailed quotation that seemed reasonable for the quality they promised, and he spoke confidently about their expertise. He seemed trustworthy, and I was so close to my goal, perhaps too eager to see it through. "We pride ourselves on precision and timely delivery, Ms. Vance," Mr. Lim had said over the phone, his voice polished and calm. "Your vision is our priority." I believed him. A few days later, I met him in person at a neutral cafe to finalize the details. He had a stack of crisp papers, and his penmanship was surprisingly neat. I signed the contract, a formal-looking document that detailed the specifications and timelines, and then I made the transfer for the significant down payment. It was nearly $200,000, a sum that represented years of my life, my entire life savings. I remember the flutter in my stomach as I clicked confirm, a mix of excitement and a tiny tremor of anxiety. But the excitement won out. My shop, my dream, was finally happening. The agreed-upon installation date came and went. I called Signage Solutions. No answer. I tried again. Voicemail. A day later, I sent an email, politely inquiring about the delay. Silence. A knot began to form in my stomach. I waited another day, then 2, then 3. Panic began to claw at me. My calls went straight to voicemail. My emails bounced back, or simply disappeared into the digital ether. The professional facade had vanished, replaced by an unnerving silence. Then, a week later, I finally reached a different number listed on their Facebook page, a general inquiry line that had been equally unresponsive. A woman with a flat, uninterested voice answered. "Hello, this is Signage Solutions," she said. "Yes, hello, this is Alara Vance. I'm calling about my order. My signage was supposed to be installed last week, and I haven't heard anything." My voice was trembling slightly, despite my best efforts to keep it steady. "We show your order as completed, ma'am," she replied, her tone devoid of emotion. My blood ran cold. "Completed? What do you mean? I haven't received anything. Nothing has been installed." "Our records indicate you canceled the order," she stated, as if discussing the weather. "That's absolutely false. I never canceled. I paid the full down payment, nearly $200,000, and I've been trying to reach you for days." My voice rose with a mixture of disbelief and growing fury. There was a pause, then Mr. Lim's voice, familiar yet chillingly detached, cut in. "Ms. Vance, we have no record of that. Perhaps there's a misunderstanding. As far as we're concerned, the work was finished, and you chose to terminate the contract. You are lying." I screamed into the phone, my composure shattering. "You took my money. You ghosted me. My shop is ready, but I have no signage and you claim I canceled. He simply chuckled, a dry, dismissive sound that sent shivers down my spine. Our records are clear. Good day, Ms. Vance. And then the line went dead. I stood there, the phone still pressed to my ear, the sound of the dial tone a mocking chorus. My dream, meticulously built brick by painful brick, was crumbling before my eyes. The reality hit me with the force of a physical blow. I had been scammed. My life savings gone. My shop a hollow shell. Tears streamed down my face, hot and furious, not just for the money, but for the betrayal, the callous disregard for my hard work and my future. I didn't sleep for days. The humiliation burned, and the despair was a suffocating blanket. I tried to push through the initial shock and act rationally. My first thought, naturally, was to go to the authorities. I dressed in my most professional clothes, gathered all my documents. The contract, the bank transfer receipts, the email exchanges, screenshots of their now-deleted Facebook posts. I walked into the local police station, my heart thumping with a desperate hope for justice. I presented my case to a burly officer with tired eyes. He listened, flipping through my papers, his expression unchanging. When I finished, he sighed, leaning back in his chair. Ms. Vance, I understand this is distressing, but this sounds like a civil matter. A business dispute. We don't handle these kinds of cases. But they stole my money. They're a fraudulent company. I pleaded, my voice cracking. Unless there's evidence of force or direct theft from a person, it's not something we can actively pursue. You should consult a lawyer, or perhaps try the consumer affairs authorities. He waved his hand dismissively, already looking past me to the next person in line. It was a disheartening, infuriating response. It felt like being told that crime was acceptable if it was conducted with enough paperwork and lies. Undeterred, I swallowed my pride and walked across town to the consumer affairs office. The process there was even more bureaucratic, a labyrinth of forms and endless waiting. I explained my situation again, recounting the details to a bored-looking clerk who pushed a stack of papers across the counter. Fill these out, she instructed, her voice flat. We'll review it, and if it meets our criteria, we may open an investigation. It could take some time. Some time? I'm out nearly $200,000. My business, my dream, is on hold. I said, my voice rising with frustration. She shrugged. That's the process, ma'am. Another dead end. It felt like walking into a brick wall again and again. The system, designed to protect people, was failing me. My despair deepened. What was I supposed to do? Let them get away with it? Let them scam others, knowing there were no repercussions? As the days turned into weeks, the hopelessness began to transform. A spark ignited within me, fueled by anger, yes, but also by a stubborn refusal to be defeated. I wasn't just going to sit back and watch my dream die. If the law couldn't protect me, I would protect myself. And maybe, just maybe, I could protect others too. My initial investigation into signage solutions had been driven by panic. Now it was driven by cold, focused determination. I started small, cross-referencing every detail I had. The business registration number they provided on the contract? Fake. A quick search on the government's business registry showed no company by that name existed. Their official address, listed on their quotation and the contract? I took a motorbike taxi there one afternoon, driven by a gnawing suspicion. It wasn't an office building or a warehouse. It was a residential home, a modest bungalow in a quiet neighborhood. A child's bicycle lay in the front yard. This wasn't a legitimate business. It was a front, a well-orchestrated scam. The realization ignited a fierce fire in my belly. These weren't just careless business people. They were criminals, operating with impunity, preying on people like me. I knew then that my fight wasn't just about getting my money back, though that remained a painful ache. It was about exposing them, about making sure they couldn't do this to anyone else. It was about making a stand when no one else would. I meticulously went through every piece of communication I had, old emails, call logs, even the quotation they had sent. I found phone numbers, the main line, Mr. Lim's direct line, the number for the indifferent woman who answered once, and even some numbers that appeared to be for other employees, likely from their brief, old about us section on their now-deleted Facebook page. I compiled them all into a spreadsheet, a growing arsenal of information. As I worked, a memory resurfaced, sharp and clear. A few years ago, a close friend had experienced something similar, but with a horrifying twist. Someone, for reasons unknown, had put her personal phone number on a local website, a site notorious for connecting individuals seeking NSFW requests. Her phone had been blowing up for an entire day, non-stop, with calls from strangers, some explicit, some just curious. It had been a terrifying and deeply invasive experience for her. At the time, I had felt profound sympathy, but now the memory sparked a different kind of thought. Was it beneath me to use such a method? My stomach churned at the idea. But then I looked at the spreadsheet of numbers, the police reports gathering dust, the empty space where my shop sign should be. These people had stripped me of my dignity, my savings, my dream. They had operated outside the law, outside of morality. Why should I be constrained by the rules they so easily broke? This wasn't about petty annoyance or random acts of anger. This was about disruption. This was about making their lives as uncomfortable as they had made mine. This was about exposing them, not just to the authorities who wouldn't listen, but to their own circles, their neighbors, their families. If they operated from a house, perhaps they cherished their quiet lives. I wanted to shatter that quiet. My initial plan, as raw and unrefined as it was, began to take shape. I would enter their phone numbers one by one on that site. Not just once, but repeatedly, randomly, across different days and times. I wanted their phones to ring constantly, their lives to be flooded with the kind of unwelcome attention that would make them truly uncomfortable. It wasn't about violence, or even directly getting my money back at this point. I knew that was unlikely. It was about consequence. It was about showing them that actions, even those hidden behind a fake company name and a residential address, have repercussions. This wasn't just about me anymore. This was about every small business owner in Etheria who had been exploited, every dream crushed by unscrupulous operators. My experience had been a harsh education, but it had also forged something new within me, a resolute determination. I was going to make sure that Signage Solutions became a cautionary tale, a scar on the collective memory of every scammer lurking in the shadows of Etheria. I would fight, not just for myself, but for a system that could protect us all. And if the law couldn't do it, then I would find another way. My journey for justice, however unconventional, had just begun. The rage had settled into a cold, hard knot in my stomach, a persistent weight that fueled every waking thought. The police were a dead end, and the consumer affairs authorities might as well have been ghosts. No one cared about the small business owner scammed out of her dreams. No one, that is, except me. My small apartment, once a haven of bustling creativity for my online orders, now felt like a cage, haunted by the phantom of my lost storefront. The idea of the signage company, a phantom itself, burned in my mind. Mr. Rathana, their slick-talking owner, had made me a promise, taken my nearly $200,000, and then vanished into thin air, only to resurface with a brazen lie. I was the one who had canceled the order. My first thought, born of frustration and a twisted sense of poetic justice, was to unleash a torrent of chaos upon them. I had their numbers, all of them, Mr. Rathana's, his supposed assistants, even a few obscure ones I dug up from old invoices. The website my friend had told me about, the one where anonymous users could post numbers for NSFW requests, felt like the perfect, dirty weapon. I began my campaign in the quiet hours after midnight, when the internet felt like a vast, dark ocean. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, a tremor running through them. It felt small, childish even. But the memory of my friend's phone, buzzing relentlessly with lewd propositions, spurred me on. If I couldn't get my money back, at least I could rob them of their peace. I typed in the first number, then a short, suggestive phrase. Call for a good time. I hit enter, a strange mix of dread and anticipation churning within me. I repeated the process with another number and another, spacing them out, changing the wording slightly each time. For the first few days, there was a morbid satisfaction in the silence. I imagined their phones ringing off the hook, their bewildered faces as they answered to confused, explicit requests. A tiny grim smile would touch my lips. But the satisfaction was fleeting. Within a week, the calls to their numbers seemed to dwindle. I'd try again, and the numbers would either be disconnected or new, anonymous numbers would pop up on their Facebook page, effectively bypassing my digital nuisance. My carefully crafted, albeit crude, revenge plan was a leaky bucket. It wasn't causing the prolonged torment I had envisioned. It was a temporary annoyance at best, a minor inconvenience for people who had stolen nearly $200,000 from me. The rage returned, sharper this time, laced with a bitter helplessness. This wasn't enough. My heart ached for the shop that would never open, the dreams that had been shattered. I wasn't just angry, I was deeply wounded. It wasn't just money. It was my future, my independence, my very identity as a capable business owner. They hadn't just stolen funds. They had stolen trust, and that was a far greater theft. The house address I'd discovered earlier became my next obsession. It wasn't an office building, not even a legitimate storefront. It was a residential home, tucked away in a quiet, unassuming neighborhood. I decided to pay it a visit, carefully, during business hours. I parked my old scooter a block away, watching the house. It looked ordinary, perhaps a little too well-maintained for its neighborhood, but nothing overtly suspicious. No company sign, no deliveries, just an ordinary house. Days turned into weeks. I spent hours online, not just on the shady chat site, but trawling through obscure business forums, local classifieds, and even social media groups dedicated to consumer complaints. I searched for Rathana, signage, scam, Etheria. My initial hope was to find other victims, to unite against him. Slowly, painstakingly, I started finding whispers. A graphic designer in a neighboring city complaining about a similar situation with a phantom company that disappeared after taking a deposit for a large project. A tailor who had paid for a custom display unit that was never delivered. No direct names, but the pattern was chillingly familiar. A quick quotation, a demand for a large upfront payment, then radio silence, followed by a false claim of cancellation. These victims, like me, were small business owners, vulnerable and desperate to make their mark. They were exactly the kind of people Mr. Rathana preyed upon. This wasn't just a one-off scam. It was a systematic operation, a spiderweb of deceit preying on the ambitious and the hopeful. The idea of just annoying them with phone calls suddenly felt utterly meaningless. This wasn't about me getting even. It was about stopping them from hurting anyone else. The stakes had elevated beyond my personal loss. This was about justice for a community of dreamers. I meticulously compiled every piece of information I could find. Screenshots of their phantom Facebook page, archived versions of their quotation template, the few disconnected phone numbers, and now the vague, fragmented accounts of other victims. I cross-referenced names, phone numbers, and even IP addresses from the snippets of information I had. It was like piecing together a broken vase, every shard a testament to their deception. One evening, while sifting through old public records, a name popped up, Sofa Rathana. Not Mr. Rathana, but a woman with the same surname, listed as the registered owner of a small, legitimate-looking printing shop on the other side of town. It was a well-established business, nothing like the fly-by-night signage company. My intuition flared. Could there be a connection? I decided to visit the printing shop. It was busy, brightly lit, and seemed reputable. I ordered a small batch of business cards, just to get a feel for the place. While I waited, I casually observed the staff, the clientele. No Mr. Rathana. But I did notice a small framed photo on the counter, a family portrait. And there, standing next to Sofa Rathana, was a man whose slick smile and knowing eyes were seared into my memory. Mr. Rathana, the scam artist. He was her brother. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. The legitimate printing shop was the front, the respectable facade behind which Mr. Rathana operated his scams. He was using his sister's business, her reputation, to lend an air of legitimacy to his fraudulent schemes. That house I'd seen? It wasn't just a residential home. It was a secondary, unregistered office for his shadowy operations, or perhaps even where he stored the ill-gotten gains. My initial idea of random phone calls felt laughable now. This was a sophisticated operation, not a petty scam by a single individual. The deeper I dug, the more I realized the scale of their deception. I discovered that Mr. Rathana had perfected his scheme over years, shifting names, shell companies, and services whenever one became too hot. He deliberately targeted small, often home-based entrepreneurs who wouldn't have the legal resources or connections to pursue justice effectively. They were easy marks, too busy building their dreams to spend time on bureaucratic nightmares. The stakes increased exponentially. This wasn't just about my money or a few random phone calls. This was about exposing a predator who exploited the very people who were the backbone of our local economy. I needed to act decisively, not just to annoy them, but to dismantle their operation. The problem was how. The official channels were useless. My options felt limited, but my resolve hardened. I had to confront them, not with anger, but with irrefutable proof. My new plan began to form, a complex tapestry of information gathering and strategic engagement. I spent countless nights online, learning about corporate fraud, about how to track unregistered businesses, about the loopholes in local regulations. I even learned a little about online defamation laws, making sure I wasn't putting myself in a position to be sued, however unlikely that seemed given their unregistered status. I gathered evidence of their false claims, their use of Sofa Rathana's legitimate business details on some of their quotes, linking them inextricably to her. The climax arrived on a sweltering Tuesday afternoon. I had meticulously prepared. I sent an anonymous but detailed complaint to a prominent local online business association known for its strict ethical standards, attaching all the evidence I had compiled, but holding back a crucial piece of information. Then, I leveraged the small network of other scammed individuals I had finally managed to connect with online. Many were hesitant, fearful, but a few, emboldened by my relentless pursuit of justice, agreed to stand with me, even if only in spirit. I also set up a meeting, not directly with Mr. Rathana, but with Sofa Rathana, his sister, at her legitimate printing shop. I posed as a potential new client, someone looking for a very large, complex printing job that would require significant upfront discussion. I was dressed professionally, my demeanor calm and collected, a stark contrast to the boiling anger I held within. When she finally met me, her smile was polite, professional. "How can I help you, Ms. Vance?" she asked, gesturing to a small conference room. "Thank you, Ms. Rathana." I began, my voice steady. "I understand your printing business is highly reputable. I'm interested in a large project. But before we discuss that, there's something else I need to address." I paused, watching her face. She tilted her head slightly, a flicker of curiosity in her eyes. "I am Alara Vance," I stated, deliberately using my full name. "I am a small business owner. Or, I was a small business owner until your brother, Mr. Rathana, operating under the guise of Etheria Signage Solutions, scammed me out of nearly $200,000 for a storefront sign he never delivered." Sofa's professional smile faltered, her eyes widening in surprise. I don't know what you're talking about," she stammered, though her tone lacked conviction. "Don't you?" I asked, my voice still calm but firm. I pulled out a sleek tablet from my bag. "I have a copy of the quotation. It has your business's registration number on it, Ms. Rathana, even though the company itself is unregistered. I also have phone logs showing calls from your brother's personal number, which I've linked to this business, to others he has defrauded." "He is not expanding your business, Ms. Rathana," I interjected, my voice rising slightly. "He is destroying it. He is a predator. And by allowing him to operate, knowingly or unknowingly, using your credentials, you are complicit. And now I have evidence. Not just for me, but for a growing number of other victims." I leaned forward, my hands resting on the table. "I've already submitted a detailed complaint to the local business association, complete with evidence of your brother's fraudulent activities and the unauthorized use of your legitimate business's registration. I haven't published it yet, and I haven't gone to the media, but I will. And the other victims I've connected with are ready to come forward." Her eyes darted around the room, fear mixing with dawning comprehension. You can't," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "It will ruin everything. My business, my reputation." "Then you need to make a choice, Ms. Rathana," I stated, my voice echoing in the quiet room. You can continue to ignore your brother's actions and let him drag you and your legitimate business down with him, or you can do something about it. I am not here to get my money back from you directly. I am here to stop this pattern of abuse. I want your brother's operation dismantled, permanently. And I want him to make amends for the harm he has caused. I stood up, leaving the tablet on the table, displaying the incriminating evidence. The ball is in your court, Ms. Rathiana. Your business, your reputation, rests on what you do next. I turned and walked out of the conference room, leaving her alone with the weight of her brother's crimes and the choice she now faced. It wasn't the petty satisfaction of ringing phones, but the quiet, dignified power of irrefutable truth. The battle had just begun, but the balance of power had irrevocably shifted. I had moved from being a victim to a force for justice, and that transformation felt like a victory in itself.